So do quick introductions. Then we'll kind of take it away. I know Kristi and I both have the end of the day slot. So, I don't know, Kristi, are they saving the best for last?
Always,
Oh,
always.
so, as David said, I'm Todd Ulise, SVP of Ad.net. We are the marketplace outside of Google and Bing. We help most of the brands extend their reach to reach incremental customers. I've been in digital for it's my 22nd year. I was brand side and then agency side, then platform side. So it's definitely been a fun ride from the initial days of the market. So let Kristi do her introduction, and we'll have a fun end of the day chat.
Yeah, I love it. Thanks, Todd. Hi, everyone. Thank you for staying on for this long, and I hope that you have a little bit of energy to get through this one. I'm Kristi Gole, and I am based here in Dallas, Texas, in the States, but most of my colleagues are over in Dubai for Global Hotel Alliance. That's who I work for. Our headquarters are out there. We were a startup in 2004, focused on helping independent hotel brands compete in the global market. And in 2010, we launched a loyalty program that connects all the brands and gives recognition rewards to members who are staying in our collection. So I joined at that time and has been able to see it through all its different stages. We recently did a big transformation. My title is Head of Transformation because I was leading the project, trying to change everything from the value proposition to the technology that supports it to our marketing efforts. And we launched our MVP in December. So we have 1 month in, we're starting to see some results, and it's kind of interesting to see some of these stories emerge in the data. And to have that as a cross section of we're in the travel industry. So guess what? People are not traveling in certain markets because of this thing that continues. So it is just an interesting place to be. Yeah, happy to talk about it today.
Yeah, no, let's definitely. I want to dive into some of the things that you've seen on the MVP product. But I mean, this since the panel is setting the stage for 2022. I think we'd be remiss not to look back, especially kind of being in the travel sector that that you've been in for quite a while. Tell us what you've seen, from 20 and 2021, and if there's things you've learned, and if you things pivot, maybe kind of talk a little bit about some past history, and then we can kind of talk about, how you've been able to level set, for 2022. And I can open up to other sectors if people are bored about travel, but we'll go through it. Probably could take 99% of the time on travel.
Yes, love it. All right. Well, without having to rehash what probably a ton of different industries are experiencing, I would say, if I think about the biggest thing that we've learned or we've seen last year and prior as well, but I'll just go with more recent, and that it's very much, I think, applicable now, is like at an organizational level, just speed and agility. And when you say pivot, yes, pivot from plans on a daily basis. I mean, the roadmap, I can't say today there was 3 calls, and I think the roadmap changed 3 times, and I'm presenting it to C-level executives of our brands tomorrow. And it's like, we have to move at super speed pace for very important things. And you're doing it on very limited information, and things change so quickly. And a lot of it's out of your control. It seemed to be in the past, it seemed more in our control, or it seemed more like the industry was able to influence it in some way, or that your business could, or the individuals within it. And now it's, there's this pandemic thing, it just changes stuff so quickly. Like even today, I saw Hong Kong just said 150 countries can't come into their airport. And it's like, well, that's new. So from a marketing standpoint, your content has to be extremely careful because you can get it wrong so easily. And then, on the last session, like Jay was mentioning, like automation, and that's necessary to do things at scale, but it's so easy to get that wrong. If you're automated, you don't have someone looking at it and saying, oh, wait, that changed in the last day. And so it's just an entertaining place to be because you have to be so flexible. And so that brings me to what, a customer is expecting. Customers, myself included, are now just, demanding and expecting complete flexibility. And, at a very literal example would be, free cancellation, or to get refunded for things. In hotels, we've always had like, a day before cancellation and you're refunded, which is great. Now airlines are being expected to do the same, and other travel businesses are expected to do that. And customers are making very last minute decisions. It used to be advance notice might have been 40 days, depending on the market, but 40 days to 6 months in advance. And now people are booking travel a week in advance. Or I was supposed to be in Dubai next week. Guess what? Last week I canceled that. Like, it just, everything changes so quickly. And so, trying to manage that, I would say, for everyone's adaptation is just the need to be open-minded and flexible and just take it and run with it. And it's sometimes it's frustrating, but to be able to change plans and know that that's just part of it. And so I would say that applies more than ever. And it's just kind of knowing that you're not going to know enough. Like even, we've been working, we're 20 years in now. And the idea is, you used to have expertise, or like in travel, and for our we're a loyalty program, we had a lot of expertise, deep knowledge of what travel behavior was and member behavior was. And now all of that is just flipped on its head. It's all like, oh, well, in 2019, here's what happened. In 2020, here's what happens, totally different. 21, it's pretty similar to 2020, but it's totally different. 2022, who knows? And it's just such a weird place to be, where you're saying, well, if here are the assumptions, and here's the range of results that would happen if these assumptions are correct. And then here's this other whole different set of assumptions, and here's the range of results that'll be in place for that. And it's kind of like, people are holding you to something of what's the date for this or what's that. You're like, well, I'll tell you something. I have no idea if it's going to happen or not. And it's this funny reality. And I feel like in a professional sense, people are accepting it. That didn't used to fly. You couldn't say, well, this is subject to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You couldn't put asterisks on everything. You had to actually deliver on everything and deliver it right, and had to have had a pilot and QA'd, and everything had to be perfect. And now I think everyone, or I feel, and we oversee 35 brands, and we get to speak with their executive teams and hear their thought leadership on a regular basis. And they're all in the same boat, which is kind of refreshing, that we're all figuring it out together. And there is this acceptance of that things are going to mess up. And then you need to have grace for yourself and for your teams. And we're hoping customers have grace with us. And so it's interesting, but I would say a state of flex is what is continued for us, and it's necessary. But I don't know. What about you? What are your learnings?
Well, my learnings, I'm familiar with the Stockdale paradox. I don't know when the end's going to be, but I'm optimistic we'll get there. So very similar. I mean, you definitely talked a lot to unpack. We'll dig into a couple more we'll dig into a couple of these things. You mentioned being comfortable in the uncomfortable. And I think for me as a leader, it's forced me to trust the people that work with me a lot more. And it's also kind of forced me to trust, as you said, the 20 plus years of experience, not having perfect information, but still ultimately make decisions. How about yourself? How has it kind of helped, or even, how have you relied upon your leadership abilities, to be able to, move forward with, what you've been able to do in an industry that has pivoted, changed, whatever the fancy buzzword is these days, so much over the last few years, and there's no end in sight. How has it kind of changed and reinforced you as a leader to be more comfortable in the uncomfortable?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's like transparency, where that's generally my style, but I feel like it's now more accepted. And so I'm very open about that. I mean, we have a call tomorrow with some of our senior leaders, and I'm flat out going to say, here are some things that didn't happen as we planned. And here's some things that, we're kind of hesitant that they're not maybe going to happen as what we had thought last month they would. And so just being open about that and realizing that it's okay to say that, because that's the reality of it. And then same with my team. I mean, we used to have, more team, not in silos, but like you'd have things designed and organized a little bit more separated, and then you'd involve certain people at certain times. Well, now everyone's in CC generally, everyone's on calls. Everyone needs to be in the loop far more frequently. So I feel like we're closer in that regard. It's an open communication. It has to be. And we're not reserving things for the point in time where we want them to be. It's just, this is where it is, and here's where we are in the process, and you are aware of this, and you can see the decision making behind it, and you can be involved with it. And I think you're absolutely right, though. There has to be decisions made, and they have to be made quickly. So I think it's really good when you're involving your team that they're seeing what those decisions are made on, and they have a chance to influence that. And so I mean, actually, I was having a call with someone earlier today, and I was just saying, okay, well, tomorrow is this important meeting. We're going to make some calls on certain things, make sure we're doing the most informed decisions there as possible. Give me the information you have so we can use it, and we'll digest it on the call, because we have no time prior to that probably. And so it's very fast paced, but I would say the transparency thing helps, because then everyone's on the same page together. You don't have to get everyone up to speed with a pre-meeting. They were on that email with you, or they were in that dialogue, and that discussion was had at that meeting prior. And everyone's just more involved in that sense, which sometimes people feel it's not even just meeting fatigue. We're all remote, so your only communication is either email or a call. So everything's a meeting in that sense. But a lot of it is, you feel like you're drained because you're involved in so much, but actually you're a lot more efficient because of it, because you're on the same page as everyone at the exact same time. So when a decision is made that day, you have the most knowledge because you're involved in it.
No, I completely agree. I mean, I think it's, I heard a quote on a panel I was on, the great democratization of the Zoom boxes. Everybody's box is the same size. And ultimately too, it's being able to, get everybody on the same page relatively quickly. But, on the flip side, being more actionable, hey, we're all here and make a decision and move quick because, from what we've seen, it's very easy to, worry about things, to your point, that you can't control. You can't control if something's going to shut down. You have to be able to react and not being paralyzed by inaction. And sometimes, an action can be simple, and then that simple action grows into something else. So, to get before that, you're right. You have to get on the same page with everybody and then be able to kind of take action and not worry about things you can't control. You talked about, the consumers and customers, making kind of shorter windows, and we've seen this through the lack of long-term planning, in a lot of our lives. I think, probably all of us have canceled quite a bit of things over the last little while, when we have to stay nimble. Even I know we talk about have children, having children in school these days, you have to stay nimble. From a consumer perspective with travel, are some of the brands you work with seeing, spikes in sectors that they might be, more closer stays, obviously over and above lower consumer demand? Are they seeing spikes in certain things that, because of the lack of short-term planning? Are they seeing more specials? Are they seeing more leaning on loyalty? What would ultimately be on the positive side that you're seeing from, the shorter term, not, hey, we're going to take our vacation in 2 years to Hawaii kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, it varies so much. We have 35 brands and we have soon to be 800 hotels. And so every single market has different things going on. I would say the promising things that we like, for a while, Dubai was on fire, and it was one of our top generating markets. And so that one's plateaued a little bit. They've got the World Expo going on there right now. But what is fun to watch is like in the Maldives. So if you're over on that side of the world, people are escaping to the Maldives for the weekend, and they're spending, 10,000 plus. There's some people staying for a week or two and spending $100,000. And so we love to see that. And that's a fun thing to just think about, the people who have the means and the ability to go do that. And I'm so glad that they're in our program because we have some beautiful hotels there for that. But I would say, in general, if you look at the stats, it is interesting where the average length of stay is longer, the average revenue spend, the amount of money they're spending on it, the average daily rate, and all of them are higher than before. And it's also because we have a leisure customer. It used to be a business customer. 76% of our members used to have a business day as part of their portfolio or their mix in our database. And now there's not as much business travel. And so now it's a leisure traveler coming to stay. Even if we have city hotels, we also have a lot of resorts. And so the leisure mix is usually a higher rate, and they are staying longer. And so it is different to see all that. That is a shift. A lot of times loyalty programs, you'll see they're designed for a business traveler because those are the people who are staying 30 nights a year. Leisure travelers are not. So something we had done in our program of design, which we had wanted to do even before we knew this pandemic was coming, was to make it appeal to a wider range of customers. So that was advantageous that we had that in the works anyway. But it's based on no longer number of nights. That's one component, but it's also based on your spend. If you're spending $10,000 and you stay one night, okay, cool. We're going to give you an elite status. Please come back and here's some rewards for that. And so having it appeal to having it a little bit broader range of customers that can appeal to was really great for us to have set it up that way, because truly in this next year, we don't know what the customer X is really going to net out to be. Because we're a global program, it needs to be kind of large enough. Our independent brands have their own specific customers that they try to appeal to, but we try to just get every customer in and get them to cross-pollinate and stay at each other's brands and hotels. But yeah, there are some positive notes there. Within the US, travel's been great. It's the international travel that's been hard to see. And most of our program mix had a lot of international travel before. So that is a big shift for us. We used to always focus on, hey, go over to London for the US market, go over to London, go over to South America, go down to Brazil. We used to have a lot of international focus because our individual brands were talking about more of a domestic focus. And so now it's a matter of, well, customers are not traveling as far. So we need to just be doubling down on the whole staycation and local travel, and again, trying to make sure our value proposition in our program is reinforcing that. So are we inviting, our main thing is, can we invite you into our hotels in your local market, even when you're not staying? That way you at least are thinking about us when you are traveling, you're in our ecosystem and you're getting some rewards based on your spend or your activities at that local hotel. And so there's a few things that we're doing there to keep it interesting, to make sure that we're still relevant.
No, you mentioned a few things. Maldives, for example, it's there was a good feature in last month's Travel and Leisure. It's like all the brand new resorts in Maldives, opening, and kind of pushing that more of a, hey, spend a week on pleasure there. So it's interesting what you said, where the consumer mindset, albeit staying a little bit local, is more rewarding themselves if they, as you said, have the means. And that would fuel kind of the living for the now, which happens, it happened after 9/11, after when travel opened back up. It happened after, it happens when there's a major catastrophe. People tend to live more for the right now and say, what, I'll spend the extra couple $1,000s, and then, people are frankly tired of the last couple of years, rewarding themselves a little bit better. And not worrying, and truly, especially as you said, working at home quite a bit with all of us, being able to create that space where, look, I am physically not here, therefore I'm going to go spend a little bit extra money on this, a little bit extra money on that, so it's interesting to see where that mindset is. And, yes, business travel might be, is going to be the slower one to come back, to the extent that it did. It'll change, but to your point, it'll create more customized experiences. You talked about content too. It's obviously with servicing, multiple partners all over the world. If there's a catastrophe, how much time and how much resources does your team focus on updating content? Like any messaging, stuff like that. And there's a question. There's going to be a Q&A, but let's talk about the content piece. And then we'll go through the question in a second. We'll kind of jump back in, after this.
Yeah, no, content's a fun one. So on the one hand, yes, our travel product is the easiest thing to sell. We have amazing locations and these beautiful 5-star hotels. And so it sells itself. Anyone wants to see our emails. We have a great open rate, great click rate, because people are just, it's aspirational, and it gives them something to look forward to. Even if they're just sitting at their computer and they know they're not traveling, it's a great product to be able to market. Now, getting it right so that you're not tone deaf of, hey, like in London just shuts down all the time, or, Thailand, it's open, it's closed. And so we have, our marketing team, it used to sit in Dallas, now it's over in Dubai, but, they're listening to the news and whatnot, but they're not aware of every single, local city and what the regulations are of that day. We didn't used to have to be that on top of it. It used to just be on a daily basis, just check the news for anything like a riot going on, and so it has been a lot of, when you say democratizing information, also like collecting information of, hey, we have like membership services directors, we call them, for our brands, but they're regional, but it's still just regional. We have someone sitting in Bangkok, we have someone sitting in Hong Kong, we have someone, and so we just lean on them and say, hey, you're representing Asia, so does this look good for you? And so it's very funny how you're really just trusting your network of individuals in your organization, but also our brands and hotels. We then send them information prior to, we call them deployment notifications, prior to an email going out saying, hey, tomorrow we're sending this to the customer base. Our layers of people think this is okay. Please let us know if you knew differently. And so there has been this for different reasons, but now it's so critical to make sure that we're not sending something that's no longer appropriate, because if a customer sees that, they'll know that we didn't know what we're doing. And it's hard to know what we're doing in every single market, because we are a lean team. There's only 70 of us, and we have our brands and they have their own corporate offices, but we don't have, minute by minute communication with everyone in a local level at this point. We'd love to get there. But I would say just to balance this, so the content piece, you have to get that right. And then it's supposed to be personalized, of course, based on where they are on the journey and all that. But the other part that's interesting is, even if you sell them on that and they're so excited to go to these locations and they believe you that this is, yes, go to this hotel, not just looking at it, but go ahead and book this, go stay there, figure out the travel stuff. And then once you're there, they want to be taken care of, right? To your point, they've been sitting, working from home for however long. They just want to be taken care of. And I know this is not content related, but it does remind me of a big operational dilemma we have in our industry where there's no staff to take care of them. We would love to take care of them, but as marketers, we're telling you what this wonderful 5-star service is, and it always has been at that hotel. However, the hotel is at 50% staff, and they're supposed to deliver that same level of quality of service to them. And it's something that we're really struggling with. And it was, I think, yesterday I was reading how in the hospitality industry, more so than even like food and beverage and dining, is the turnover has been so extreme for different reasons. Front of off, there's some low salaries, but also if you're doing housekeeping or dishwashing, it's not the most glamorous. You could be doing something like Amazon deliveries, and maybe it's a better lifestyle choice for you. And you could be making more money for that. And so as an industry, we're really up against some operational challenges right now that didn't used to be at the forefront as much. We used to be able to fill those gaps a little bit more easily. So you've got a customer expectation, you've got a marketing content. If we can get that right, that's already there. And then you've got the whole, can we deliver on what we're promising you when you do show up at the hotel? And that's something that we're all trying to work on.
Yeah, no, you talked about the, trust, kind of shooting something to the team in Asia. Businesses have had leaned into more trust of their partners, like kind of, and that happens and is established over time, not in the short run. So, you did talk too a little bit about, the thing that's now rearing its head is the labor supply. Be it people are sick or they just don't want to work or they're getting, hired at other companies. We were dealing with shortages in supply chain. Now we're dealing with shortages in labor supply. To any consumer, I would advocate, and even kind of business partner, with empathy. Just understanding and sitting and and being able to have that conversation, just preaching, look, things will get there. You will get your extra toothbrush in your hotel. It might take 12 minutes, but you will get it. And it's hard from a marketing perspective, as you said, when you're talking about, hey, you're going to get this 5-star service, you're spending thousands of dollars per night, but you might have to wait a little bit longer because this person's whole family is sick and they can't do anything and they can't come in. So it's hard to be able to find that balance from a content perspective. So I can empathize. One of the questions from Sophia, I want to go through a couple questions, and whoever is online, feel free to post questions and we'll answer them. And then I want to talk a little bit about the MVP program after that too, Kristi, that you kind of launched recently. So from Sophia Moinpour, how do you plan into influencer marketing to build brand awareness, or some of the hotel partners, how do they plan into that?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I want to make sure I was reading one of them on the side. You said, how are we planning to build brand awareness?
Yeah, how do you plan into influencer marketing to build brand awareness? So.
Okay, well, interesting question, because our program, the reason why I had to give such an introduction to GHA is you probably haven't heard of Global Hotel Alliance. So as a company, we don't have much brand awareness in the US. We do more so in Europe and Asia. And then as a loyalty program, our program is called GHA Discovery. And again, you probably have no awareness of that because we spent $0 on advertising, which is funny because Todd's on ad.net. But we have a different business model of how we acquire customers. We have it'll soon be 20 million members. So it is effective in its own right. But brand awareness has been something that we have been challenged with because we don't advertise. And previously we didn't do PR as well. So with the launch that we did this past December, we did finally get a PR consultant, and we started doing some PR efforts. And I can say we've had 343 coverage postings about us in the last 3 months, which is great. And we did like $700,000 worth of media coverage, all from just making sure the right people, the right journalists knew about what we were doing and that we could answer their questions. So I think for building brand awareness at a central level for our program, we're trying to get the word out there as economically as possible. We don't have money to be throwing at that right now. And then our brands have wonderful brand awareness. So like, again, in the US, you wouldn't be as familiar with them, but in Kempinski is outside the US and they're all over Europe, beautiful hotels, great brand recognition. And Antara is in Asia, and it's this experiential brand. It's amazing. You have Marco Polo, and they're all regionally strong, and in their local markets, they're extremely respected. They have brand awareness. So our loyalty program at their hotels is called Kempinski Discovery, or Corinthia London, where Rihanna stays. It's Corinthia Discovery. And so we kind of piggyback on that. And that's kind of our business model is really set up that way. We do things kind of on a B2B level first. They're our first layer of customer, which is our hotel brands. And then they acquire customers in. And as soon as those customers are booking their hotel on their website, or if they're actually checking in at the hotel, they say, would you like to join this loyalty program? That's when we kind of take over and we do all the CRM and we handle the platform and the technology and the marketing behind it. So in terms of building brand awareness, the most thing is the brands are kind of more responsible for their own hotel awareness. And then once a customer's brought in, it's on us to make sure they're aware of this program, that will reward them across this larger network, and that they're being rewarded and engaged enough to be interested in it. Whereas our program wasn't as kind of rewarding beforehand. And so it was a little bit less reason for them to take notice. And now we have a new digital rewards currency we launched. It's a lot more, I think, lucrative for them, and people are starting to take notice. So we're using kind of a few different pieces there so that they're more aware of what the program is and drive awareness in that way.
I know other sectors are leaning into loyalty quite a bit now. I mean, it makes sense. Obviously, you go shopping in your own closet. It's a lot easier to keep a customer happy than go get a new customer. How much are you guys leaning in, to the loyalty piece, and the hotel brands are working with to, that family of four was traveling to Hawaii for a few weeks, get them to spend an extra 5 or 6 nights and spend, $10,000. How much, receptivity is the loyalty aspect being prioritized within some of the organizations?
Oh yeah, I mean, they've fully doubled down. We've signed NH Hotels as one of our new brands coming in. Again, the name recognition is in the US, but they're 350 hotels. They dominate Europe and South America, and they're coming in because they believe in this program, and our other 35 brands, and they're all, yes, they've doubled down. That's why they've all been willing to go along with all these big changes that we're enforcing, not only at our level, but all of our brands, all of their websites and systems, and the hotel property management system, PMS, and all the training. We had to train 100,000 staff. I mean, all of that, everyone was willing to do that collectively with us, because we all agreed that loyalty is what is going to be driving more business and driving repeat stays at higher revenue, higher value to our hotels. And so that was realized prior to the pandemic. We all bought into it then. And as business became more and more stretched, we realized how incredibly necessary it was. We were trying to speed up the delivery of it, which was difficult because you had less staff, but we realized how critical it was, and we all very much believe in it, which is great because we're a loyalty company. So if it doesn't survive, we don't. But fortunately, that aspect's been promising.
No pressure.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit more, the MVP program that you said you launched last month, and interesting time to launch a new program. Talk a little bit about kind of the overall, what the program is, some of the theories you had, how you've been able to, use the word pivot, and ultimately too, how, even if things launch in an interesting time, how do you ultimately stay the course with this stuff? So talk a little bit more about the program, and we can kind of go in a little bit more depth.
Yeah, well, I mean, you mentioned, it is funny, as a marketer, no one wants to launch something in December. It's not the right time for many reasons. But as we talked flexibility, yes, we've had a few different launch dates, and collectively as a group, again, we do everything from a group mentality. Think of it like, it's always a union mentality, where we have this alliance, and everyone has to be on board, from the CEOs to the CCOs, the CMOs, and our shareholders, and all of us have to agree on if we make big changes, such as a launch date moving. And so there were so many dependencies and moving parts. And, the main thing is, we're rolling out, we wanted at one point to launch last summer, but half of our hotels were closed. So how are you going to launch a program if the hotels are closed? Or if they open, that person that's working the front desk was hired yesterday. They're not trained on it. They don't know the system. So there was all these components that, even if everything was right, there were some critical pieces that weren't going to be there. And so you had to wait till everyone collectively was ready to go. And so that said, we designed this program back in 2019. We started customer research because our program was coming on 10 years and it was starting to mature. And the growth metrics were plateauing, and we could sense that. And, the external environment, you had a lot of Marriott Bonvoy started getting bigger and bigger. They got SPG. You had Accor with Accor Live Limitless, which was coming in as a lifestyle program, and they went all in, pun intended. And then you had, OTAs coming in, online travel agents like Expedia and Booking, and they got bigger and bigger, and they spend billions of dollars on advertising. So whatever they do, they're very loud about it. Whereas when I told you, we don't spend money on it. So even if we're doing really cool stuff, it's kind of word of mouth that you hear about it, or you have to hear it through indirect channels. And so we knew all these things were happening. And then the biggest point of differentiation that we had was our reward component. It was called local experiences. And we were this industry leader then, and it was fun, and it was really cool. We won all these awards for something called local experiences, meaning we don't give you points because everyone gives you points and you can go get them at other programs. Our hotels are unique and distinct, and therefore our program needed to be as well. So we said, hey, if you're going to London, go ahead and have this authentic, like behind the scenes activity that we'll curate for you. That's your reward. As an elite member, this is what you get to do at our hotels. And there was some really cool stuff. And so there were high value things, and our members really did appreciate it. And it really set us apart. And that's what we were intending to do. But what was happening is all of our competitors started they entered that space as well. They did it in a different way. And of course, we know our program enough to know that we did it better, but they were doing it in some capacity and they were much more loud about it. Their customers knew about it more. They were better at talking about it. So there was all these different reasons. We realized we had to change. So we did a customer research. We did focus groups across, Shanghai, Madrid, London, New York. And then we did a quant validation. We made sure that a subset of our members could kind of help us prioritize some of the things we're looking at. And we did some business modeling to project, hey, if we want to do all this stuff, could we afford it? And what would be the return on it? And we did all of that. We brought in some agencies to help us do it right. And so we concluded at the end of that year that we wanted to revamp everything, like a completely new value proposition, a completely new approach for different things. And it was going to cost some money. And we're a startup. We run lean and mean, and we needed some money. And at the same time, some new shareholders came in and they said, we believe in you and we want to invest in you. And yes, go please spend money on exactly what you're talking about. And it was this big kind of aligning of the stars and they signed off on it. That was in Hong Kong. We had all of our CEOs sitting around a table in October of 2019. So get the shareholder funding secured and started doing the requirements and all this in January of 2020, which is when COVID started hitting China. And then the little trickle down of hang on, wait, before you start signing all these RFPs and vendors, wait, let's see what's going on with this. What is this? Oh, this will be done in a month or two. We're fine. And then it continued. But so that at that point on, we still all believed in it on a weekly basis. We were always gathering, input and validation and feedback from our various levels, from our shareholders to our different boards or the strategy board. And we have an operations board. We have all these different boards to just kind of make sure everyone's on the same page and going along with this and that we've got everyone's buy-in and their input to make sure we do things right. And so that said, along the way, we kept saying, hey, what do we need to do? What are we going to focus on? Then we broke it into several phases. We realized what we wanted to achieve was not going to be able to be happening in the next 6 months. So we have to break it into phases. So what we launched as our MVP is phase 1.0. 1.1 we're working on right now for January. There's supposed to be a phase 2 that's going to be in Q2. And then, so anyway, we have it built out to essentially 2024 of all the stuff that's big stuff that we want to be doing. The biggest thing I'll just tell you is when we did our customer research, they wanted simplicity, right? So I told you we don't do points and we still don't do points, by the way. But they liked what points represent, which is it was a cash back or a rebate idea. They'd say, I'm spending money or I'm doing some activity, give me something back in return. And they like it to be a tangible thing and people understand money and they understand points and points is close enough to money. So we took it a step further and we said, well, if you want money, we'll give you money. We'll create a digital rewards currency. We've got Discovery Dollars. Guess what? We have our own currency. It's Discovery Dollars. It's trademarked or it's in process right now. And so we created it so it was a lot more simplistic. And it was very straightforward. And then we were saying, to your point, Todd, when you were saying people want to indulge, they want to live in the moment. So we're saying, okay, cool. So go ahead and spend this on your indulgences. Go ahead and get the nice bottle of wine at dinner and you're earning, cash back for that. Or use this toward that expensive bottle of wine at dinner. If you're there on a business trip, maybe you can't expense that. So go ahead and use our rewards for that. And so you can just put it toward your bill at checkout. So the idea is you can use this toward anything from your room to the spa, to dining, to golf, whatever you're doing at our hotels, because we have resorts and we have a lot of different amenities. And we also still have experiences. So if you still like that component, we still have those and you can still put this toward that. But now it's open to everyone in the program. It used to be just a subset, the top 4% of our stayers who were elite had access. Now the entire membership has access to it. You're just going to buy it. It's still created from the hotel. And that's the biggest component. I know I can go on, but the program's got some cool stuff. But the biggest thing is we created a reward currency to give us something a lot more just simple, direct, and meaningful to our customer. And it's got a lot of flexibility, of which right now is limited to our hotels, but on the roadmap, there's some other cool stuff we're going to be doing with it.
Yeah, I mean, what have you, since you did launch in December, what have you learned, like from the program that you've launched that you're going to kind of take into future phases, about your consumers, or about launching in December or whatnot? So talking about transparency and actionability.
I mean, it was a bit chaotic. There was long days for a long time by everyone. If I try to think about the biggest things, I think we overcomplicated it with we had 11 RFPs. We had a lot of vendors to specialize on specific things, which I'm not saying that was wrong. I still agree in that. if we had had more time and if it had happened in the chronological order we planned it out to, then we would have done some things differently. There's some vendors that were kind of redundant or unnecessary, or we overcomplicated some areas where we had two vendors kind of in the same space, and that really, really didn't work. And so we had some issues with that structurally. And then, there was just too much to be done. I feel and everyone knew that we were biting off more than we could chew, and we still all agreed we wanted to do it. We had to do it. So I do feel we should have dumbed it down a little bit more. We did make an MVP and we stripped a lot, but it's not sustainable what we did. And the thing is, people got so trained with us delivering so much in a relatively short period of time based on when we were actually just able to start development and whatnot. And so now there's all these other phases, and it's like, hey, we have 2.5 months to do all of this. And the reality is that would take 9 months on a best schedule basis. And so we are kind of trying to step back and say, hey, okay, what is sustainable? You mentioned, labor supply at a corporate level. We have people poaching our team members, and they're offering really significant salary increases. It used to be, if we weren't paying the same, we still had, a brand purpose. We still had a cool culture that people could connect with. But if we're working them and they're burnt out and they're paid less and they're the list adds up. And so that's where, okay, this isn't sustainable for us or for our brands. We were asking so much of them, and at their hotel level, there's so much we've been trying to do, and we have done I'm always telling them how proud we should be, because we've done some really amazing things, but it's not sustainable at the level we've been doing it. And so at a leadership level, it's trying to step back and make sense of that. We have very high expectations from our shareholders and from our other stakeholders. And we have some deliverables that, don't necessarily look reasonable, but, what do we do with that? And so what have we learned? I would say I've learned we can do it. And then the question is, do we have to make ourselves do it? It's something that I do think we need to. The whole prioritization piece, it's like, yes, you've got 4 priorities at the same time. And everyone's like, and that's the big joke, because it's not a priority. But the thing is, yes, they're all supposed to happen. All the same one person is supposed to do 1,000. We had a resource, we have this tool called Smartsheet that we use. And I was looking at it earlier. And if you look at it like resource allocation per person on the project team, and I was 200% tomorrow, someone's 1,800% tomorrow. So they're going to do the job of 18 people full time. And yeah, that's going to happen. And so there's just so much over assigning of people and things, and it's not realistic. And so I think having to step back and say, earlier I was saying transparency. People need to have grace and just need to be aware of what's realistic and not. I mean, there are tough conversations trying to let people know what is realistic and not. And I think trying to assess what really has to happen, what's to have the biggest impact, what is the most important for the business, and also the people who are contributing to the business.
No, you're absolutely right. It is. And it comes to the communication and the transparency internally and also externally. There are, to your point, there's a lot of priorities, and you never want to hear somebody say, I'm too busy. Okay, let's just get a better job about prioritization, and kind of stepping back and say, what are the 1 or 2 things you want to accomplish? You're not going to accomplish everything, even though that is kind of in a product roadmap. It's what the couple things I want to accomplish that are the most important, and then sharing that with the team and communicating that, for obviously, as you said, the key stakeholders involved. So, and also too, in the vendor selection, you're going to, once you get more data pumping in, you're going to see which, what consumers are interested in, so it might not be, they might not like beer. They might prefer good wine. You'll be able to see some data, and that'll ultimately leverage where you guys go on a directional level, on the types of things, experiences, the things, and kind of redeem and reward. So,
yeah, I will tell you a fun tidbit there. You did ask, and I don't know if you want specifics, but something we saw today in the data is 84% of our redemption of this new reward currency is from our partners. I'm sorry, take it back now. 84% is cross-brand. I think it's 40-something% is from our partners. Well, partner and mold members are a small subset of our total, very small subset. So it's like, if they're half of the redemption, what is that? So my first thought was, is this in China or Singapore? And guess what? It's all in China. So now it's digging in. Okay, what's going on in China? We have like 70 hotels there. They're traveling domestically, but what are they doing? So it's fun to just see who's responding, but then it's why are they responding? Did they get a hold of something? Did they hack something? Or like, you have to just figure out, what are these groups? They get clever, and some journalists will post something. You're trying to figure out, how did they get access to stuff? Should they have it? Are they actually doing the behavior we want, which would be amazing? But you always have to kind of have a skeptical eye with some of these things they look like anomalies.
Yeah, no, exactly. Trust and verify the data. So I mean, I think we got 5 minutes more. I wanted to open it up to, this is great. You and I can talk all day. I know we did our prep session the other day. I wanted to open up to kind of the group, if there's people who have questions, that Kristi covered, or, we can kind of keep talking about some of the things that you're excited about in 2022, and it could be the growth of the program. So it looked like there's more questions. So what are you excited to kind of build on, in 2022? I know you have the MVP program, we both talk about what excites us and what kind of gets us going and moving along for this upcoming year.
I mean, what's exciting to me, if I look past what we're trying to achieve and the pressure for that, but what is really exciting is we have I'm very jaded and very biased, but we have a very generous program. It's a very attractive, straightforward program. It was built from customer. Like, I'm very proud of the program, and I'm so glad people are starting to talk about it now. Like, we have journalists now including us in these like loyalty publications that they never noticed the decade before. They never even knew we existed. And so it's really cool that we're starting to get on the radar, and that I'm allowed to now talk after 2 years of being quiet. I'm allowed to talk about it now. And so I'm looking forward to bragging about this program and letting our customers know. I'm over marketing, and it's like, hey, what a wonderful program to market now once people are allowed to travel. And but if they are able to come to a hotel, make sure they know about our program and how we have the best hotels and best program. And so it's that's fun. It's like I can get excited about that, and that's been a long time coming. So I'm excited for something as simple as that. And then we have some stuff on the roadmap that's also really cool, and I'll be excited once that's launched, and clenching teeth until we do that. But what about you? What are you excited about?
Just to get back to the new normal. I mean, I think we all arbitrarily set a deadline. 2022, we're going to, get back, to kind of in the office, in person, on multiple things, business travel. And then, this latest wave happened. So just finding that balance, and just, being able to, we've been in high growth mode, for a 20-year-old company, we're definitely in high growth mode, just bringing on good people within our organization. And we have, and we have a significant amount of open recs out, so hiring a lot of great people. So yeah, I'm just excited to kind of move forward from 2021. I think all of us are. There was a question actually for you from Claudia Pilgrim. Question is, when approaching and reprioritizing marketing initiatives, do you have an in-house analytics person on the marketing team, or to help translate or bring context to the digital data? So do you have somebody in-house when you kind of look to reprioritize marketing initiatives? And is that looking at
Claudia, great question. Yes, we are hiring for one right now, because now we're all doing it ourselves. We used to have a person who was a wizard at that, and then when they left, we didn't backfill because of the financial situation. And so we need that desperately. We're all picking at it, and we need a marketing analyst to help us with that. And part of that, I'm so sorry, Sophia, your question earlier, I didn't see. Now that I see it in writing, you mentioned influencer marketing for brand awareness. Okay, sorry, I didn't pick up on that. Yes, we are dabbing into influencers. We have an agency helping us called Icon. It's out in Dubai. But yes, we have our primary markets and secondary markets. We're going to now be paying for influencers to help spread the word. We're going to try that out. We hadn't done that prior. We did an ambassador program kind of thing that we managed ourselves, and it was so small. Now we have an agency helping us to amplify that a bit. Also tapping into influencers somewhat, but more like building brand awareness through new means, new channels. For China, we do have a big audience there and a big hotel presence there. So we are dabbing into Weibo and WeChat. And then you mentioned on the previous thing, they were talking about TikTok. And yes, we have a team who wants to be doing podcasts and TikTok. And I was just like, guys, don't, again, biting off more than we can chew. There's so much stuff we want to do, and we have so much content that we could be doing it, but we have a limited team. So it is this whole like, make sure that we're doing one at a time, and then trying to get it right and learn from it and understand if it makes sense for us.
So I guess the moral of anybody in the Brand Innovators community who's listening, Kristi and I are both hiring good people.